So for this last presentation, we're going to talk about a couple of different diseases and what they reveal in terms of the brain and the organization of the brain. In terms of disease state, once again, your book provides some information on this, so hopefully you can read about this. We're going to talk about Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease, and unfortunately my father has been stricken with Parkinson's disease, is a bad disease. Michael J. Fox, if you look on page 296, it talks about what it is. You've basically got a stoop posture, you've got tics that basically happen, tremors while at rest, that the hands have kind of a pill roll thing that they do. As far as the brain is concerned, you have this tremor at rest. So that is Parkinson's disease. If you want to click on something and see it, you certainly can. Michael J. Fox was stricken with this, and he's actually devoted a lot of time and energy and money into figuring out what's going on. We have learned a great deal about the brain and the neuroanatomy of the brain and chemistry of the brain on the basis of the research on Parkinson's disease. The one thing we really know about the brain is there does seem to be, once again, another key pathway in the brain. And by the way, when you describe the symptoms, just use the book and page 296 to describe the tremor at rest and some of the other symptomatology that happens. We've discovered that there is a key pathway in the brain that seems to be linked to this idea of Parkinson's disease. And that key pathway is called the nigrostriatal pathway. And I've linked up a picture of this. This is once again in a slightly different area for motoric function in the brain. It has to do with a structure called the basal ganglia and the substantia nigra. And these two structures seem to get impaired when people have Parkinson's disease. Most importantly, what seems to occur is that the dopamine that is in this pathway, so dopamine is a main neurotransmitter that's implicated in Parkinson's disease, we seem to lose the dopamine, and this pathway seems to lose its ability to function properly, which seems to lead once again to this whole idea of the brain is deteriorating, behavior deteriorates as well. The pill roll or the tremor at rest, the posture changes, and so we've isolated once again in terms of mind and body what is going on here, the specific neurobiological tract. So they have uncovered this. The book talks about some of the treatments for this. The treatments basically consist of giving people L-DOPA. L-DOPA is a precursor to dopamine, and when it's taken up by the brain, it's converted into dopamine, and that helps out people. They've also done some things with electrical transplants up in the brain, where if they put these in and you press on a button, it'll cause the release of dopamine. They've even tried to do things with transplants up there as well. So they're working on a lot of different things for Parkinson's disease, but that is a good one in terms of figuring out what's going on inside the brain. So we know that to be the case. The other disease that I want to talk about is the disease of myasthenia gravis. Myasthenia gravis is a disease that actually hits the neuromuscular junction, a very different area, and actually not an area in the central brain region, but the neuromuscular junction is the area before you move your muscles. So for example, if I'm speaking right now, there are signals coming from my brain. They're going all the way out through the neurons, and before my mouth moves or before my hand moves, if I'm moving my hands, the last neuron is called the motor neuron, and you all know what neurons are. That motor neuron ends up kind of, how shall we say, coupling up with your muscle. Motor muscles that actually move the particular muscle to move your hand or move your arm or move whatever part of your body you want. And so that particular area between the last neuron, the motor neuron, and the muscle is called the neuromuscular junction. And if you look in your book, I believe they give you a little bit of a picture of this somewhere in there. Let us see. Maybe, maybe not. Where is that myasthenia gravis thing? You'd think I'd be a little more organized here. Yeah, 272. It's basically the area between the motor neuron and the muscle, and it's called the neuromuscular junction. When people have, the other thing we know is that the neurotransmitter at this last neuron, between the last neuron and the muscle, is acetylcholine. And if you remember in the last unit, we learned that acetylcholine is very important in movement. It turns out that when you get the bows and arrows, the arrows coming from South American Indians, and they hit Indiana Jones in the beginning scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark, they have curare on it. That blocks the neuromuscular junction, so you can't move. So when people have myasthenia gravis, it's that same neuromuscular junction that's being affected. It seems that the motor neuron and its synapse don't reach the muscle. And then you have this disease of myasthenia gravis where there's muscle weakness, there's drooling, there's eyelid drooping, and all sorts of other bad things going on. The product they give to people is a product that tries to increase acetylcholine. It's called, what is it? Physostigmine. You can see on 273. That product is used because that'll stop an enzyme, that'll stop acetylcholinesterase from destroying acetylcholine, and thus physostigmine will increase the amount of acetylcholine in the brain, and thus that'll help people with myasthenia gravis a little bit, but it's not going to stop the neuromuscular junction from deteriorating that much. So these are the disease states. This is what we know about these two disease states. Before this, we talked about the neurobiology. Hopefully this makes a good deal of sense to you. See if you can put together a good outline showing your own words using what I've said in the verbal presentation here with some of the book information to make a good story. Use the outline, look at the attached things I had, and if you come up with other resources, you can use those as well. Thank you.